Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns. In this video, we will be recapping the wild card series in both leagues and previewing the divisional rounds heading into the next round of the playoffs here in the MLB. All four of us are here. John, the sad Orioles fan, Will, the optimistic Phillies fan, hopefully for his sake, and Bobby, the optimistic Phillies fan, and myself. And yeah, we're going to
The
discuss everything that
optimistic
happened.
Tigers fan.
The optimistic Tigers fan, exactly. Go Tigers, baby. Um, yeah, we're going to recap everything that happened over the last few days and a look ahead to the next round starting tomorrow as we record this on October 4th. And let's start with the probably the best series of the definitely the best series of the wild card round, the Mets and the Brewers. The Mets down to just their final outs. Up comes Pete Alonso, and he does the damn thing after Mets fans have been calling for this man to get, not cut, but not re-signed in the offseason. They want him gone. He steps up and sends them to the next round. Well, I'll ask you this question, kind of, we obviously already know the results, but do you feel better or worse that the Phillies are now playing the Mets over the Brewers?
A little worse. I mean, I don't think it was a drastic change on my thoughts facing the Mets over the Brewers, but when the Mets have been as clutch late as they've been for the last couple weeks, and you win a game like that, literally pulling it out of the Brewers' hands, it's a little intimidating going into the next series. And so I do think it's kind of crucial for the Phillies to, I would say, win game one, but I mean, of course, just win a game at home to try to take that momentum away from the Mets. And hopefully you win a couple. And if you do happen to lose the series, the Mets can't do it in New York.
I think, yeah, and the Mets will have some obstacles that we'll kind of look at as we talk to that. But John, I'm going to send a question over to you that we talked about in the last episode, which is, for the Brewers and the Orioles as well. We'll get to them, but these are teams that have not had great postseason success recently and have really gone out early when they shouldn't have. Do you think this series was more on the Mets being good and getting through, or the Brewers being the Brewers of the past few years?
Hmm. I'm gonna go with a little bit of both. Honestly, I just think the Mets just played better, is what it just came down to. I don't think the Brewers did anything wrong. Their bullpen did let them down, but I mean that's just the nature of baseball, and that's the nature of like sports. Somebody's gotta win, somebody's gotta lose. So to say that the Brewers blew this, I mean, yeah, they did, but it's not like they got swept. Um, but you know,
I mean,
other teams.
they I was gonna say, unlike other teams, yeah. I mean, they gave it. They had it in their hands, like you said. I mean, and the Mets just come up with a clutch, piece of hitting in the last inning and are
What are
able to
the
ride it
odds of
out.
that? Well, seriously,
Well,
you're down to your last out, and you hit, and one of your guys nails one over the fence. Like, what can you do? What?
there is some stuff we'll talk about that maybe increase their odds. I'll get to that in a little bit. But Will, I'm going to pose the same question to you. Is this more on the Mets or the Brewers with the result of this series?
I'd say the Mets. I mean, the Brewers as a whole, really, there are two key moments I can think of where things fell apart, and that's Williams absolutely crapping the bed there in the ninth in game three, and Payamps just not being able to come in relief of Peralta and giving the monster inning. But other than that, I mean, did the Brewers blow anyone away offensively? No, their pitching was very effective otherwise, but the Mets do what they've been doing. They hung around, they found a weak spot, and they took advantage of it. So maybe you could point a finger also at whether or not a team like the Brewers potentially play too much into the um I don't want to say tradition because that's not the right word, but the typical playbook for postseason baseball and yanking pitchers too early. And I'm mainly thinking game one with that, with removing Peralta with after like 66 pitches, even though things were getting hairy. But in the end, I think the Mets being as clutch as they were and sticking around is just following what's worked for them, and they are proving that they can win under any situation.
Yeah, and for you kind of look at that game three, and it gets dicey because Quintana comes in and pitches a hell of a game for the Mets, and they bring Buto in for the batter. I think it was what, the seventh or eighth at that point.
Seven.
Bring in the next guy, and immediately gives up back to back home runs, and it's like, wow, man, like the Mets, like it kind of felt like the energy had just shifted. Obviously, Milwaukee got loud, but again, the Mets fight back, and got to talk about Devin Williams. This is a guy who has been one of the better relievers in baseball throughout the regular season for the past few years. But you really look at what he's done in the playoffs, and it's not good. It's been a lot of injuries going into the playoffs, or it's been him kind of blowing up in big spots like he did last night in that game versus the Mets. And kind of want to talk about this. I don't know if you guys have kind of seen the conversation online, or what John Boy posted, but I guess there was a chance that Williams was tipping his pitches, and the Mets kind of were on that. Now, I've also seen other people say that he's been doing this all year and his stuff has just been good enough where it doesn't matter. But it did seem like the Mets in that ninth inning had found something. And even on like Alonso's swing, I mean, he gets a change up there in that count, and he was ready for it. I mean, he was right on it and nails it. Will, I mean, do you have any thoughts just on that in general?
I don't know about tipping, but I can think back to 2022 when the Brewers did not make the postseason and they fell out of it in September. And I remember that Williams had a few games near the end of the season there where he had blown late leads and the Brewers would lose the game. So there seems to be something about Williams potentially that while he is a very, very, very effective pitcher throughout a 162 game season, sometimes when things get a little tight at the end of the season and things get ramped up, that he is just not as effective. Now, again, like you said, is it a matter of that he's always like this and maybe players get a little more honed in at the end of the season and can pick up on certain things like that? Maybe. But I mean, there's also things pertaining to pitch selection in certain moments. Like, should he have thrown a changeup outside to Alonso versus down and in? So there's a whole lot of factors that go in than just um what's his stuff tends to be in that situation. And so sometimes being that, I mean, it could fall back a little bit on the manager too, since what Murphy was the bench coach before this for a while. So it's not like this is a totally different run group, even though you have a different person at the helm. It's just the same type of group, and they're having the same type of results they've had since 2018.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of basing again this information off of what I've seen from the John Boy video, but also you kind of look at the at bats. Like first batter comes up is Lindor. He's going to give you a good at bat regardless, but he seemed honed in on what was kind of coming. He gets the walk.
Just honed in that whole game.
He was. I mean, he's he got a lot of crap because he was in the MVP conversation, which nothing he did wrong, but he has been really clutch for them this year. Vientos comes up and he does strike out, but even him, it seemed like he was on the fastball. Like the last pitch of the at bat is a fastball up, and he missed it, but it seemed like his timing was there. It was just up. And then I think it was an 0-2 count on to Nimmo, and he gets a changeup. And I mean, he is like, again, on it. He's right there. The timing's good. And then Alonso, like, and again, it's just the different glove position and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering if that's a thing. I mean, John, do you have anything to add on this conversation? Because again, for Williams, he's been so good, but in these clutch moments, he has really faltered.
I mean, that might just be the how how it is for him. Unfortunately, I mean, how many times have we talked about over the years Clayton Kershaw, as an example, can't get done in the postseason. So maybe that's the case for him. But I want to go back to what Will said about the manager pulling pitchers too early. This is the postseason. This is what you're supposed to do because you're trying not to give up any sort of momentum or any sort of like ground to the other team. And I mean, you did what you were supposed to do. So that's the mindset there. You can't fault somebody for doing what they were supposed to. If it were the other, if the shoe were on the other foot and he was leaving guys in there way too late, it would have been like, oh well, clearly he left them in there way too late. So can't you can't get upset when you do what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think managers always deal with that, right? It's a double-edged sword because if a guy gets pulled early and they end up losing, he's gonna get crap for it. If they leave him in and he gives it up, they're gonna get crap. So it's like whatever happens, I mean, they're gonna get crap for it either way if they end up losing the game. Um, and I think they used Peralta last night too when they were up, and things again were looking good for the Brewers. But in the end, Pete Alonso, and again after all this stuff that's kind of been happening, he drops the ball in foul territory, just whiffs on it,
Mhm.
which thankfully for them could have led them more. But he's just seeing fans on Twitter like, "Get this dude off our team," blah blah blah, and it's just so funny, especially when you're talking about a New York
Overreacting.
team. Yeah, and you're talking about a New York team as well. Maybe it's a little bit more, but he comes up in the ninth, delivers the game-winning hit, and everybody is praising him like he is a god. So, um, yeah, I think the Mets now go into the series against the Phillies, and I think the Mets were better off than the Braves in terms of what they were kind of coming into for this wild card series. It ends up
You
being
think?
true.
You
Yeah.
think?
And maybe we'll see it. And again, we'll discuss the next series coming up. But let us talk about those Braves who,
Mhm.
man, they tried to put up a fight, but it was kind of a lopsided series at times. Um,
Fuck the Bravos.
And in the end, it is not enough. And the Padres look good, although they do lose a big piece in Joe Musgrove. Again, something that's going to be talked about as he's going to be out for probably all of next season as well. Will, what are your thoughts on the series? I mean, I think the Padres had control of it. The Braves make a comeback in that game too, but it's not enough.
Yeah, the Padres, I don't think did anything particular to blow me away, but they clearly had control the entire time. The fact that the Braves had to put out AJ Smith Shawver for the first game was kind of a huge indication of what was lying ahead for them with the injury to Sale. And this just kind of goes back to the questions I had at the beginning of the season. When you trade for someone like Sale, the bright side is you got what you got for the 162 game season. The downside is he is injury prone. And guess what? In the key situation you needed him, he was injured. So the Braves team also offensively, like the rest of the season, sure they had injuries to Acuna and to Riley, but the other superstars did not show up. And in the last month of the season, Ozuna's also seemed to shut it down. They kind of got a big ride out of Michael Harris, who typically has not been a good postseason player, but had a fantastic series. But the Braves team were dead. The Padres jumped on it. However, losing Musgrove, who has definitely become a better pitcher since he came back from his injury in the summer, that's going to be huge. However, they have a strong bullpen. So I don't know if it necessarily changes like my prediction, which was that Padres would beat the Dodgers, but it does definitely makes it a tighter series now.
Yeah, I mean that's a big loss, right, for them. Especially as we said, it's Tommy John, so he's going to be out for next year as well. But I mean, even just for now, you lose a guy, and that kind of tests the depth a little bit. I think they still have three really quality starters, but you do need that fourth. And with Musgrove there, I think that four that they have would be really scary. So now They do rely on their bullpen more, but thankfully for them, their bullpen has been insanely good with the acquisitions that they got during the trade deadline. So I'm excited to see. I think they have a big series coming up that's going to really tell a lot. If they end up advancing, I think, I have been high on the Padres, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, John, in terms of this series, we kind of detailed it. The Braves fly across the country. Uh, Sales ruled out for the series. Everything was stacked against them, and in the end, it was just too much.
I also think they were facing a much better team. I mean, you can't. The Padres are one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. They were one of the best teams all year. So for them to have to go against the Padres and drawing the Padres, we knew that they like you can literally draw it on paper. You knew they were going to lose, and we would have been shocked more than what we already are of like what the Padres uh of what the Braves did to the Padres more than what we are of what already happened in this wild card round. I hate baseball sometimes. Anyway, yeah, it when it comes down to it, they played a much better team. You can't really beat yourself up. You were the walking wounded all season. Although I don't want to hear other teams' struggles with injuries. It, yeah, just all in all, the Braves. I don't think you have anything to be upset about with this one. I really don't. You have every excuse in the book. So if you're a Braves fan, just be like, okay, we'll be back next year. Everybody was hurt. Yada yada. Move on.
And they will be back next year, I think. And
Oh,
also,
absolutely.
um, for them, I think there was probably some happiness that they got there because it really did not look good for a while. And a lot of people did not have them getting in, but they sneak in over the Diamondbacks. And
I
again, it
mean,
wasn't a close series, but
that's my point. It's like you weren't even expected to be there
yeah.
at all. Like you were as soon as Acuna went down, as soon as Spencer Strider went down, like you have all these guys like you have your stars who you were literally called the rejects. Okay, you had no reason, no like you had no reason to be there,
Okay,
and you
don't go
were.
that far.
I mean,
I'm,
I think the Diamondbacks probably would have uh played a little bit better
I think so too.
because of the injuries to
Well,
the
because of their
Braves.
offense, it was literally going to
Yeah.
be could they outslug their pitching mistakes?
I,
And for a series or two, they probably could have.
Well, that's what I was like when we were looking at potential matchups. I kept saying, the Padres and Diamondbacks were really fun, even if it's a 3 game series, because the final scores would probably be like 8-7 or 9-8, 10-8, stuff like that throughout the series. In
Like
the end,
baseball would have been like, yay, scoring.
yeah, exactly. But it turns out the Padres actually got some pretty good pitching performances this series, Michael King being the big one, and
And that would have been a contrast to my team's series.
we will see what happens going forward. Last thing I'll say on this series, or just for Padres in general, is um, I feel like San Diego doesn't get enough love for how electric that their crowd is sometimes, and especially around postseason time. It's like it seems like a pretty hard place to play. So we'll see what
You also
happens
got to
with
think
them.
about it this way: that's their only sports team in town.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, they pulled everybody
because
else out.
because the Chargers left, I think that makes that fan base much more rabid than what it is already.
Yeah. Let's head over to the Detroit Tigers Houston Astros series. Detroit wins the series, which me
Got to
and
save my
Will.
sorrow for last, huh?
Yeah, I am gonna save it short for last. Will and I did predict this to happen. Will, I don't remember what you had. I didn't see them winning in a sweep. I thought it would go
I
to a
had it
game
as a
three.
sweep. No, I
Okay,
had it as if they win the series, it's in a sweep. If it goes to a game three, then the Astros would
they're
probably
in,
take it.
yeah, they're in trouble.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, but kind of how we detailed it. I had said this. I said you get Screwball on the mound in game one. I don't care who's on the other side of it. It's going to be a tough matchup for that team, and it happened to be the case. I mean, the Astros didn't get anything going until late, and the Tigers were able to hold on. But Scooble's just been so good this year, and then they have their bullpen games where they just are mowing through them. Also, some clutch hitting from a player that you just probably haven't heard of if you're not a Tigers fan coming off the bench, Andy Ibanez, and getting that hit. So, uh, obviously, really fun series for me as I've continued to kind of been rooting for the Tigers. But, John, I mean, this is an interesting one because I think we kind of talked about the Guardians are probably the most well-rounded team in the AL, but I just feel like the Tigers get to have this magic and they're still hot. Like, what is it about this Tigers team that they continue to just be able to do this?
I think it's just they're playing with house money and they have nothing to lose. What do you have to lose? You were dead in the water for a little bit, and then you got hot. You continue to stay hot. And this happens all the time. And they might be the magic team this year that wins it all. Who knows? I mean, Detroit fans are certainly hoping so after, all those years of having the three-headed monster and everything like that in terms of a pitching staff, excuse me. But guys, do you realize that this is the first time in 7 years that the Astros will not be in the ALCS?
Yep.
Thank God.
I mean, they were bringing up that stat, and I think the funnier stat to me, really, is that there's 3 AL Central teams left in this. Like, there's going to be an AL Central team playing for a spot in the World Series, and maybe 2 if the Royals upset the Yankees. Like, as much shit as we gave this division at the start of the year, and everybody gave, it's just funny where we're at, man. It's really hilarious that here we are. And, the Tigers are playing great. That's going to be a fun series. I mean, the Tigers and Guardians is going to be a lot of fun with how the Tigers have been playing, how the Guardians have been all year. That should be a high flying series. Well, I'll go to you with this on the Astros. Um, we talked about at the beginning of the year, is this the fall of the empire and blah, 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 this and that. Houston, we have a problem. And then they come back and they storm into the playoffs. They win the AL West. But now you are potentially seeing Bregman leave and maybe some other pieces. Do you feel like, this is maybe the point where the Astros, I still think they'll be a contender, but aren't as dominant as they've been the past couple years?
I think there will be a drop off. I think the notes also about the GM saying they are going to have to be creative with their payroll potentially going into next season is another indicator that they're kind of relooking on about how they build the pieces. They don't have the farm system they used to. I think the biggest factor to whether they compete is what you're going to get out of the Mariners and Rangers each year. You have situations like this year, then the Astros could still kind of sneak away with the division, but you would think that a team like the Mariners would learn their lesson by now with
Yeah.
how to win a division and how to build a team correctly behind the stellar pitching they have. And the Rangers, you have to imagine, was a bit of a fluke year pitching wise. Though, I mean, when you have Jacob DeGrom, every year is an injury prone year. So I think the Astros can be creative with some of their offseason signings, but I am not necessarily expecting them to make big flashy things. And if they do, maybe they make one with what Verlander potentially off the books and Bregman.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think, and it's going to be interesting to see who they replace him with, if that ends up happening. It's just, you have those staple pieces that have really been there forever, and people forget. I mean, the Astros sucked before this group of players. So we'll, again, see how they kind of bounce back, who they'll fill in. They still will have Altuve and Jordan and Tucker, so we'll see. But yeah, AJ Hinch comes back to the Astros and does
With a
He
vengeance.
owns Houston.
yeah. And look, he would have got a lot of crap if they lost that series because he brings in Jackson Jobe in that game too, and
That
it
was
goes
questionable.
very poorly, very fast. Thankfully he gets bailed out because I think if they lose that series, there's questions there with
Yeah,
putting
that
him
was
in.
huge.
Yeah. But yeah, man, go Tigers, baby. Still love them. All right. John, this is the point in the show that you are going to love the most.
Is this why you kept throwing it to Will and talking to Will the whole show? You wanted
No,
my
no,
opinion
no.
on
Floor is
this?
yours.
The
You were
floor,
saving me for this.
the floor is yours, but let me set it up. Kansas City wins the series in what honestly was a super flat series as a neutral. It was it was kind of horrible, to be honest. It wasn't great. Both teams kind of sucked, but the Royals end up coming out on top. They pitched well enough, and outside of the one solo home run from Cedric Mullins, nothing on the board for the Orioles. John, what went wrong in the series, in a series that we all predicted them to win?
Everything. Everything went wrong.
So the starting pitching was atrocious.
That's the thing. Like Burns and Eflin gave up 3 runs. The pitching gave up 3 runs in the series, and we lost. So John is sad. John's very sad because they did it to me again. I hate Kansas City. I hate their team.
Kansas City didn't do it to you. You did it to yourself. Let's just be honest.
No.
Orioles were 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position. That Colton Cowser bet is going to be the face of like their postseason run right there in one at bat because they had the bases loaded. He swings at a ball at his face and he strikes out instead of turning his back.
Hold on.
He found the can.
Hold on.
It was in the back of the goddamn shelf in the grocery store, but he found it.
Hold on. I just want to point out that should have been hit by pitch.
No,
he swung.
He literally
absolutely committed.
Did you know the rules of baseball?
He was getting out of the way.
You know the rules of baseball.
Yes,
he swung and then absolutely. All right. So the rule gets tricky because technically the rules he commit to swinging, but he 100% committed to swing. He was fully laying out on a pitch. And then just absolutely
he was
did not realize
backwards.
it was going backwards.
What do you mean he was fully committing?
Because he was swinging the millisecond it was out of his hand, and then he went, "Oh crap, it's coming at my face."
What? He was swinging the millisecond it came out of his hand?
Yeah, he was way too eager.
Backwards. What are you talking about?
As he was swinging.
You literally see him falling backwards.
Oh, good. Bobby is a great producer. Because I kind of forget. I've seen this, but then I kind of forget. But
that is not falling backwards. That is getting hit in the hand, and then you fall backwards.
That's falling backwards after you realize you fucked up.
Yeah.
Because he swings, and then he's like, oh shit, swings. I'm about to get hit in the grill. This is not good. The
only thing you could say is he did not pick up sinker, which is like, duh. But the pitch was inside to begin with. He obviously was trying to cheat a fastball inside, and then he realized, oh crap, I'm wrong. And there's no falling over
Bobby,
until after
you gonna
he's
show
got
the
hit and screwed up.
frame-by-frame replay on this so we can actually see what happened? Or
I appreciate different opinions.
Give me a second. Give me a second.
I appreciate different opinions. In this case, this is nothing but a bitter Orioles fan trying to
I'm going to disagree with you 100%.
Says the bitter Orioles fan.
What do you want me to say to it, huh?
He fucked up.
No,
once again.
You go frame by frame, you literally see that he did not commit and was falling backwards. Okay? But either way, this pitch,
I'm trying to find this.
That pitch did not cost us the series. What cost us the series was our hitting and the fact that we could not get
not
breaks.
This alone. No.
It literally everything. It seemed like no matter what we did, we could not get the breaks, and we could not hit when it mattered, and that was the frustrating part.
No, that part is 100%
defense. The defense was stellar. The pitching was stellar. Everybody was worried about the bullpen. The bullpen was fine. I mean, granted, in the first game they were,
barely used.
Yeah. Listen, the guy goes almost 9 innings of 1-run baseball, and we couldn't get a run. We only got 5 hits. We didn't get a man past second base. Like, come on. So it was just frustrating.
I mean, yes, did they not get any breaks? Sure, but you also have to make your own breaks sometimes in sports, and the Orioles did not do themselves any favors in that. But again, I am. I mean, he's swinging. Look, his whole hand is out in
I don't
front of
even
him.
know if he realizes it's going to hit
Uh,
his hand. I honestly think he thinks it's a jam shot, and
That
then
was
realizes,
that was
crap, that hit my
the
knuckle.
that was what I was gonna give him originally before I just saw that part of it where I was kind of like, well, there's also the possibility that he like was definitely gonna swing and then realized halfway through that it was gonna hit him and then just couldn't get out of it because he was already like ejected. So it just kind of like, but he's swinging.
Yeah, it's not a good look, and obviously weren't able to capitalize on that situation. Like, for a lot of the series, they were not able to capitalize. Um, I mean, John, what's next with these guys, man? It seems like the same story every year. It's the same thing with Brewers. They have these great, regular seasons, and once again, they get to the playoffs and choke.
hold
And
on, hold on, hold on. I'm gonna disagree with you that it's the same story every year. We just got back last year.
I mean,
Like,
I mean,
I
the past 2 years at least.
yes, I,
This
and then
Orioles
I
squad
agree.
has
I
one
just want to
narrative
put
in the postseason.
I want to point something out.
Yes.
This stat of we've been swept 10 times in a row. We haven't won a postseason game in the past 10
Attempts.
10 games. I just want to point out that there's a 10-year gap in between. That's a little
Still.
unfair. I'm just
Still.
saying.
But one win.
There might be voodoo on the Orioles, and that's what they're trying to tell you.
Well, let's see what new ownership can do.
That needs to be the new stat whenever we're talking about like historic the postseason chokes is what is their voodoo rating is what we need to start figuring out for postseason droughts.
All right, they need to hire someone to just go around the clubhouse and find who hit the voodoo doll.
What do you
Look,
think about Hyde coming back? They've already announced that.
they've already announced it, and I think that's the best move possible.
Okay,
Like,
I was just curious.
You can't. What do you want? What do you want them to do? He didn't do anything wrong. The issue was
There could
not
be questions of whether he did enough to truly help the team, though, during the slide, given lots of things that came out about how the clubhouse was behaving during that time and the mood. So there can be questions.
okay. Who were the sources though? That's the thing. Were they just simply beat writers for like ESPN that were trying to find things to write about, as you said before the show, or were they actually members of the Orioles beat writing team that were in the clubhouse?
And that's the question.
Well, that's the reality, and that's the thing. You see people on Twitter, you see people on ESPN who aren't there. There was never an issue in the clubhouse. We just got injured.
Well, the part of this is also
we
based
went
on
on a
some of the
slump.
post-game interviews that he gave. So
I will
Are
say
you not
though,
going to be frustrated during losses? Like,
I will
man's human.
say I don't know if this is really his fault. It's more of a management thing, but I still am of the belief that they did not do enough at the deadline at all. With the system that you have, and I don't, they're so young, so they still have a long window, but um, you want to take the
You
chances that
can't.
you have because
Hold
you
on, you
don't know.
can't predict that one of your best hitters is going to get hurt the day after the deadline and
I
break his
understand
hand.
that, but I still think they could have made a move or two to help out.
they made in the defense of the Orioles, they did make a fair amount of minor moves at the deadline that I do think, in some ways, helped the team. There are certain ones that obviously you could say, well, that maybe that wasn't the best in the situation, and hindsight's making it look even worse. And mainly, I'm thinking Eloy Jimenez, but I mean, but let's also face it, the Orioles going to the trade deadline were still one of the best teams in the American League. They were battling out with the Yankees. They may have even had first then. So it was a situation of the Orioles continued, just went on this not ultimate collapse, because in the end they still took the first wild card spot. They had over 90 wins. And they did, in my opinion, at least solidify the bullpen a little more than what it was before under Captain Kimbrel. But
that guy needs.
I think right now the main thing is that they just hopefully see where things fell apart again in the postseason and what they need to do to fill up the whole / solidify the team going in the next year. And of course, your big thing is that you're getting back Bautista.
Yeah, and
I
that'll
also
be
want to
huge.
point out. I also want to point out we're incredibly young
That's what I'm saying.
still. You
I-
know, and
Learn
I
nothing.
think. All right. Well, I think that to an extent, I think it would benefit the team to go and get a big bat for that's like a leader. But we need to also try and re-sign Burns or try and re-sign Santander, and if not, then we have to go and replace those guys. So now you double your issues in
Juan
that
Soto to
sense.
Baltimore, baby. Here we come.
That's don't get him
That's not
fired
gonna
up.
happen. That's not gonna
Please,
happen.
dear
No,
God,
I
no,
mean
no, no, no.
I
That's
get what you're
not gonna
saying,
happen.
John, and and that's what I'm saying too. They are young, and there's going to be more years. I just feel like in sports, there's no guarantees that every year it's going to be okay. We're going to continue to be great in the regular season, and we're going to continue to have the same opportunity to go win a World Series. Will they be back? Absolutely, but I just feel like they made some minor trades at the deadline. Um, Eflin, he was okay, but like it just they didn't make the trades, especially when they were talking about trading for Scooble and stuff like that. Like there was a lot more
I
things that they
mean,
could have done, and I think they, relied on what they had, and then injuries bit them. And I get that that happens, but I feel like they kind of rested on their laurels a little too much.
you can make that argument. You can
I
make that
am making
argument.
that.
No, sorry, I had to cough.
Uh,
You can make that argument 100% that that is indeed the case. But when you look at it like this, when you look at it like this, the team before with the same guys won 101 games. What were you supposed to do? What were you going to do? Why would you try and, you know, just trade away guys willy nilly? Like you said, we were battling for first place at that time. You're not going to just trade away your major league, players that, you know, would have given you like a Tarek Skubal, for example. I think one of the trades was Jackson Holiday, Colton Cowser, and Jordan Westberg for Tarek Skubal. No, especially Westberg, who at the time was one of our best hitters.
Well, that was never really an option. So let's back up.
I mean,
Well, hold
but
on.
look at the
But
system they have though.
those were the arguments people were making as to what
The
they should
arguments
do.
were on a Holiday and like a Mayo type of trade, not on.
Then you
And at the
have the
time,
issue.
whether or not they should trade Norby.
Then you have the issue of what. Jesus, Bobby. Then you have the issue of what happens. We're seeing it right now with the Astros, of what happens when you get older. What happens when you can't re-sign everybody? What do? You have this 1-1. Do you just give up on him? Do you have this potentially future third baseman, first baseman? Do you just give up on him? These guys are tearing the cover off the ball in AAA. So what is it that you do? And there's a reason why we sit in our rooms talking about this, and Mike Elias is making these deals. So
Tyler's
firm,
arguing it's the deals Elias didn't make.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
I firmly believe in Mike Elias, Brandon Hyde, and the organization. I am excited to see what new ownership does and what money they're willing to spend this offseason. And if it's no money, then I'll be sad. But you know what? It is what it is.
I again,
Stupid money time.
it's not about them going out and trading starters in the roster that they have for other guys. It's more of getting insurance policies. If somebody goes down, like Westberg, that you have a guy that comes in with experience. Like again, just having some depth, and I think that um or other options, and I just think that they could have made more moves. They didn't. So we'll see. The Orioles will be back,
Also,
but
keep in mind that with baseball in these past couple of years, especially with the last wild card, a lot of teams are not willing to trade their, you know, more serviceable and bigger names because we could make a run. We don't know, so you want to almost hold on to those. And that's
Yeah, I get it.
that's the case that it's been in the most recent years. So you got to look at it like that as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean there was a lot of teams that were sticking around for a while to see if they could potentially make it, but I don't know. Again, they'll be back. We've spent way too much time on the Orioles. Let's move on to talking about the next series coming up. We will go back to the NL for the Mets Philly series. On paper, I think it's pretty clear that the Phillies are probably the best team in baseball coming into the postseason. Um, so I mean, well, I'll go to you first. I mean, how do you see this going? What do the Phillies need to avoid doing to end up losing the series?
The main thing is just seeing if they use the time off wisely. I have faith in the offense to find its groove. They've been able to come out of some breaks and have an offensive outburst right away at times. They've also chased a lot of pitches, so they're going to have to stay within themselves. My biggest question is going to be just that the pitching doesn't lose control, because they've had times where when the bullpen hasn't been used for a little bit that they get a little wild, and it is clear when facing the Mets that having a strong bullpen is key. That being said, the Phillies have also had a lot of success this season against the Mets bullpen. And at least it looks like with game one, there could potentially be a bit of usage there depending on how they follow up Senga. Could be McGill with a couple, 3 innings for Senga, 4 innings for McGill, and then it's a bullpen the rest of the way. But the Phillies have scored 14 runs off of the Mets bullpen just in the month of September. So while things will be closer than what I thought versus the Brewers, and this is going to be one intense and chaotic matchup, I have the Phillies winning in 5.
Wow, okay, 5. So I was just gonna say, I think if the Mets have any chance of winning this series, they have to do it in 4 or less, because the issue you're gonna run into is you're gonna have to face Zach Wheeler most likely a second time, and I don't think they'd be able to get it done if that's the case. And I think really for the Phillies, this game one is important.
Yes.
You take the game one in Philly, you use your ace to get that win. Maybe take some of the momentum away from the Mets. I think that's going to be big. The Mets honestly are in a better position than I thought they would be in terms of like their availability for their pitchers. Now that they have Senga back, they'll be able to use him, and we'll kind of see how that goes because everybody's bringing up the Strider, um, incident where he comes back after a while. I mean, Senga has not been around all year, and then it's just funny. It's like here he comes. The Phillies are on the docket. Here comes Senga,
It's
and
bold. No
it,
doubt
it is.
about it.
I mean, it is, and he's a great pitcher, but the guy is gonna be rusty, you'd assume, and we'll see how it pays off. Um, but yeah, I mean, with him getting inserted in the lineup, it will allow them to use their big three for the next 3 games after that, based on like the days they have off and stuff, which I think for them is going to be huge. I mean, John, I'll say this about the Mets. I think their clutch hitting is going to need to be big for them. And again, they've relied on the long ball all year. Um, I feel like that's probably the way they get through the series. What about you?
I think that that the Phillies pitching is going to have a tough matchup, but I think they'll be able to eventually shut them down because as we just saw, teams that rely on the long ball for their run production really when that gets taken away, what do you do in that sense? And that's the issue that the Mets are going to have to overcome. That they're going to face. I can tell you one thing: I am excited about this. You know, rivalry being renewed of Mets Phillies because I just feel like it's been more Phillies Braves recently, and uh, this the Mets Phillies rivalry has kind of fallen flat.
Yeah.
So
There's one thing the Phillies and Braves can agree on.
from an outsider's perspective, I am excited to see what this series holds because as we've seen over the past couple of years, when the Phillies get into the postseason, the fans get a little more rowdy, the players get a little more not cocky, but getting a little more of a swagger, and You go from there. So we're gonna see. We might have another Attaboy Harper moment. Who knows?
Yeah,
boy, yeah.
I will agree though. I think like, dude, the 2000s Mets Phillies rivalry was crazy. We need that back. That's what
I
we need
think
back
this
for
could very well
baseball.
bring it back.
That would be awesome. Well, I mean, the Phillies do have the edge this season in the record against the Mets, but it has been back and forth. Do you take that and any of that into consideration when you look at this series? I mean, the Mets have
It
played the
honestly
Phillies
doesn't matter.
decent. Don't matter.
It doesn't matter. Look at what the Phillies did versus the Braves the last 2 seasons. They always entered the postseason uh, with the losing record versus the Braves. This year, the Phillies are also playing things in the Braves' shoes. They got the bye. They're facing the NL East team that's coming in hot as the lower seed. So this is a whole new ball game for the Phillies in the end than what they're used to. So they really have to take everything that's kind of happened that got to this point, other than just tape, and throw it out the window and just have smart approaches and stay within themselves and not chase pitches.
Uh, Anybody have anything to add on the Senga situation outside of what we already said? I think it is kind of insane and bold that they're doing it, but we'll see.
Lead
I
off home
mean,
run by Schwarber, calling it now.
I mean, you gotta do what
Schwarber
you
bomb.
gotta do. You know,
I
you gotta put your best foot forward, and I guess he gives them their best foot. You know,
once again, it's going to be if it works out, they're going to be geniuses. If it doesn't, there's going to be a lot of backlash. There's
I
really going
will
to be
say
no in between.
this: the Phillies have to win Game One. You
Yeah,
have to
I really,
kill and
yeah.
I
squash
do
that
think that is a
momentum.
huge thing.
That
Yes.
is probably the biggest game of the series, at least until Game Five. You know,
Mhm.
until the clinching game. Like that will probably be the biggest game of the series
And the one thing that
for the
does help the
Phillies.
Phillies is that because they have announced they are pitching Christopher Sanchez in game two, which many people expected given Sanchez splits home and away, you have Nola in game three, which can be fantastic. If you're looking to sweep it, it could be fantastic if you're on the verge of being swept. So I think the Phillies rotation is the best it's ever looked entering the postseason, though I know the number four pitcher has been an issue for the Phillies the last couple of years. Having Suarez as the fourth guy who I feel comfortable either having to come in and pitch an inning out of the bullpen if need be, or pitch on whatever rest he does or doesn't have. Key's one of those I feel confident he can pitch whenever.
Yeah, and the Mets are slated to have Mania game three against Nola. So when that game happens, I think it's going to be a good matchup because Mania has been so good for them this year. But we'll see. I think the Mets, like I said, are in a better position than I thought they were going to be with how the season ended, the doubleheader on the Monday. I feel like they're in like a decent position, so we'll see if they can continue what they've done. Let's go down to the Dodgers Padres series. This should be I mean, this could potentially be the series of the playoffs, honestly. Looking at it, these teams played each other extremely hard during the regular season. It was back and forth. The Padres actually had a winning record against them this year at 8-5. So, John, I'll go to you first with this series. What are your thoughts on it overall?
The Padres are the Dodgers' daddies. There's a reason they're called the Padres. No, in all seriousness, the Dodgers have this history of losing in the postseason. I'm a firm believer in you take history and you can shove it, because it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the postseason. But when you go to the the let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Shohei Otani making his postseason debut. I can't believe it took that long to say that sentence. But
God damn
you
you,
know,
Art Moran.
yeah, seriously. But no, but when you look at it, that's an element that has to be taken into account here. What is this guy going to do in the postseason? You could argue the lights have never been brighter for Shohei. You know, you could argue that, you know, this really is the start of the Dodgers season. I mean, they had what, 98 wins this season?
Mm-hmm.
We said back in January that the Dodgers won this division when they got Shohei. that as soon as the season started, all right, pencil the Dodgers in for the division series. So we're just gonna see. We're going to have to see, but I honestly think that the Padres are going to uh, bend the Dodgers over and spank them. I
Wow.
do.
I'm
Wow, they really are the
I
daddy.
think the Padres in 4. Honestly, I think the Dodgers get 1, but I think the Padres in 4.
God, I just was not expecting that for some reason. Um, well, we've kind of talked about how the Dodgers have been so banged up with starting pitching. Now that the Padres lose Musgrove, is it does it even out, or do you still give the edge to the Padres?
I'd still give the edge to the Padres. There's just more of a chance, I think, that the series goes the full 5. I'm pretty much with John on a lot of what he said. I'm not gonna go so far as saying it's gonna be a spanking, but I think even with the injury to Musgrove does not compare to the injury situation that the Dodgers have in their rotation. And both offenses are very potent right now. So I'd still give the Padres the edge. I'm still keeping my prediction that they'll do it in 4. The Dodgers are just simply going to have to hope that they can get Freeman, some combination of Otani, Betts, Freeman, and Hernandez and Smith connecting. But it also seems like in recent years, and at least given the Brewers' start to this postseason, and you could even say maybe the Braves' loss, that recent trends are still alive when it comes to teams and their postseason records. And so the Dodgers better hope that their starting pitching can survive 2 innings before exploding.
This is this what I'm about to bring up is maybe an argument for a different time, but this is where the structure of these 5-game series are kind of interesting because if the Padres are able to take one of the first 2 games on the road, then they have games 3 and 4 to end the series. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels like, if you're a team that doesn't have home field advantage, you can very quickly give yourself an advantage just by winning that one game. And it just feels like I don't know how they would really do the structure for a 5-game series, but I've kind of thought about that in the past where it feels like the home field advantage they talk about really isn't as prevalent as it is in other sports, just based on the layout of the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna have they're gonna have a tough matchup because I think your game 3 starter for the Dodgers is Walker Bueller, who obviously has some pedigree, but he's been horrible this year, and really can't find it. So I mean, it feels like if the Dodgers are going to win the series, they have to win, maybe even the first 2. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But again, this should be a fantastic series, maybe the series of the playoffs, at least hoping it lives up to that. Let's quickly head over to the AL. Tigers, Guardians, 2 teams that have a similar kind of style. A lot of what their success has been on is their bullpen, and timely hitting and kind of clutching up when it matters. We've talked about how the Guardians are easily the most well-rounded team in the AL, but the Tigers come in and they just get it done, man. They just find a way. They claw back all the time, and they have the closest thing to a win in Screwball every time he gets on the mound. Will, how do you see this series going?
This is a matchup of 2 very, very similar teams. The It's hard to say who really has an edge from a rotation standpoint because the Tigers' rotation is Scooble and then some guys and a bullpen that follows. But the Guardians have the best bullpen in baseball. I don't think there's any doubt in that. And sure, the Guardians have a few extra names or named players in their batting order compared to the Tigers. But I mean, both teams seem to rely on very, very good pitching, getting by enough runs, 4 or 5 a game, winning close games. The Guardians won the season series. However, they have not played each other since the end of July. And we know that the Tigers have been hot these last 2 months, and the Guardians have been very back and forth at times. and haven't always been consistent. The Guardians have also not won a playoff series since 2016, since they lost the World Series to the Cubs. They just cannot advance. So I
Even
have
then, they weren't the Guardians then.
no, they were the Indians. But still, so in my prediction prior to the playoffs, I had the Guardians going to the championship series, but I'm changing it. The Tigers win it in 5.
Oh, I love that from you. I love that from you. As you said, two teams that are kind of built the same way, reliant on that bullpen. John, I'm sure you're tired of me talking about the gritty Tigers, but they continue to do it, man. Do they have a shot against the Guardians?
First of all, I just want to comment. It's every fucking day with you. It's every day.
Every day, in all caps in the group chat. Those
Seriously.
gritty Tigers.
The gritty Tigers. I personally, I like the name, the Gritty Kitties, a little better. But yeah, it's every day with you, man. Like the gritty Tigers, the gritty Tigers.
I'm telling you, the funny thing about it too. I mean, they have, I think, been the best story in baseball. But if not for this podcast where I predicted them to make the playoffs, I wouldn't have as much investment into this team. But because I'm
because
like,
there's footage.
yeah, because I'm exactly ride or die now, baby. They're my AL team now.
All right, I'll tell
it.
you what. I'll tell you what. If the Tigers do end up going to the World Series, if you don't get a Tigers jersey with the World Series patch,
You got to get a well, he doesn't need a jersey, but he needs a World Series shirt. Come on.
You need a jersey, full on jersey. You need a school ball jersey with the World Series patch. All right.
Okay, that's good. You're buying me that?
Hell no.
Like a $300 jersey, forget it.
Yeah, you're on your own.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I suggest you check Teemu or Wish for it.
I'll get a jersey instead of the Tigers. It'll be the Lions. It'll be like, huh?
No, you'll get a jersey instead of the Tigers. It'll be the Tigers.
Hey, that's a great jersey right there.
Anyway, going back to this, we're gonna see what is better. Is it better to be consistent or is it better to be hot? And I think we're gonna get our answer in this series. And I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to pick the Tigers for the simple fact that it just doesn't make sense.
You don't want me to be happy, John?
No, I never want you to be happy. But in terms of the Tigers,
everyone to be miserable with them.
Yes, I want pure misery. Misery loves company. Now, in all seriousness, though, I think that the Tigers, I think that they're the hot team. They could even be hotter than the Padres, honestly. I just don't know when it's going to end because it has to end at some point, right?
When the season ends and they have a crown.
No. You would think.
Another thing you do have to factor in is that you have AJ Hinch going against Stephen Vogt. Very experienced postseason manager, first-year manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
good
fair.
point.
This is fair.
Good point. I mean, it's funny, just again, looking at the preseason projections and Vegas odds. I know you love those Vegas odds, John. I mean, who would have predicted the ALDS between the Tigers and Guardians to start the year?
Can I just point out, I think the MLB scriptwriters here got this a little too much on the head, considering 3 of these 4 matchups are literally division series.
Yeah, I know. They're really trying to renew some rivalries. That's what I think is happening here.
And even the Royals Yankees back to the 80s. That's where we're going with that one.
Yeah. And let's get to that series because our quick video has quickly become an hour long.
This should have just been a podcast.
It's okay. The Royals and the Yankees come on in. Hey man, I will say the Yankees have had some rough years in the playoffs and a lot of backlash. But if there was ever a field for them to make the World Series with the teams, I mean, again, the Guardians have been great, the Tigers have been great, but you look at these teams on paper, this feels like their best chance to get back to the World Series. How do you feel about that, Will?
Yes.
Okay, good. I also messed up
No. I'll give you 5 more seconds of talking. I have no faith in the Royals after what they showed in the Orioles series. Sure, I understand they won and the pitching gave up one run the entire series. I am putting 75% of that on the Orioles not performing rather than the Royals pitching, because the Orioles definitely had opportunities. As for the Yankees, they and compare 500 teams against 500 teams in the regular season, or Royals are 47-54, including their postseason matchups. Yankees are 55-38. Royals have continued to hit really badly in these last 3 weeks, even with their couple wins. So if they win the series, it's because Aaron Judge and Juan Soto broke ankles. So if the Royals win this, then win this series. It is purely because the Yankees lost, not because the Royals won, unless everyone is having like insane series. So I have the Yankees sweeping.
All right, counterpoint to that though, and he did make an impact on the Oreo series. They do get Pasquantino back. Does that change anything for you? Not in terms of the result.
Hold on,
hold on.
The hero with the rod and screws in his thumb. They didn't talk about that enough. They didn't talk about it enough.
All right, New York, he's not going to be able to get past the metal detector. He's going to have to wait in the bus.
Man, I hope he has pre-check at TSA. He's in trouble.
I don't think it'll change.
No, I don't think it'll
for the
change
series.
it.
But does it change your outlook on the Royals offense?
No, because their Orioles series, to me, even with him back, was pitiful.
He didn't do anything.
I mean,
this is not a situation where they did not have him for the wild card series and they're getting him now. He was on the team the last series and they were pitiful for a lot of it offensively. Other than the rotation, the top two guys in the rotation for the Yankees are worse than what the Orioles have. No, I don't really think that factors at all.
Yeah, John, your Orioles should be here, but they're not. How can the Royals? How can the Royals?
What?
Can you
possibly match up with the Yankees?
John, can you make yourself root for the Yankees?
No.
Can you make yourself root for the Royals?
No. I'm rooting that the stadium implodes. Neither team is able to compete in the ALCS, and they have to make the Tigers and Guardians go to a 15 game series.
He wants an all-out brawl between both teams where everyone gets hurt.
In order to settle who goes to the World Series, I'm not going to be watching this one, and I'm going to be rooting vigorously against whoever wins in the ALCS.
We're going to have I hope the Tigers beat the Guardians, because then John's going to be the biggest Tigers fan.
Exactly. But there's room on the bandwagon. Hop on. All right.
I don't want to start rooting for the Gritty Kitties because I don't want to ruin their chances. I want this story. I like the story.
Best story in baseball.
Problem is that I know as soon as I start rooting for them, they're gonna get swept.
Oh man, yeah.
Wait to root for the Tigers if they face the Phillies in the World Series.
I was gonna say.
I mean,
maybe stay away.
I've turned on the National League at this point, and I'm just gonna, I'm gonna go for the Phillies here.
Okay. Well, now they're getting swept by the Mets. So, good job.
Sorry, buddy.
All right, that is all for us.
I'm sorry. Next week you'll be in my shoes, pure misery, and then I'll get to throw at you, how the Phillies choked this one and all this other stuff. But yeah.
Yes, thank you. I've been thinking about this whole night. Yep. I've been thinking about that all last 48 hours.
Garrett Stubbs,
I know, bro.
We had a conversation about backup catchers at the beginning of the year. It's not an important position per se, but great culture guy right there. You need a clubhouse.
Great culture.
We're not talking about this. We're done. We are an hour into this video. We are done. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content and you want to find us on social media, you can find us at Twitter at BL_breakdowns, Big League Breakdowns everywhere else. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Give the video a like, all that good stuff, and enjoy some more baseball this upcoming weekend. We'll see you next time.
Wear your seatbelt.